You're listening to msp-waves radio. This is the Steem Witness Forum. The Steem Witness Forum is today. It starts right now, which is January the 26th of 2019. I'm joined here by two guests from Steemit who are going to go kick off this conversation, and Gerarchy and newly appointed Managing Director of Steemit, Eli Powell, or Elizabeth. And then following some 30 to 45 minutes of conversation that we have with the Steemit group, we're then going to go move on to talking with the witnesses. There's a handful of the top 20 witnesses that are here with us. Agrode, Follow BTC News, The Real Wolf. I think Marky Mark is supposed to be here. Yabamat's supposed to be here. A couple people said that they were running a little bit late, so... and then we'll also have some backup witnesses. Frederica, who's doing the Steam Press program and the app there. We have LL Farms, who's representing C Squared, and then I also think it's possible that Colonel's going to be here too, and that's going to sort of round out the show. Let me make sure I don't have anybody muted. Yeah, I had Eli Powell muted. That would have been bad. And everybody else looks all right. And then let me go pull in Gerarchy on as well. We'll see if he wants to talk. And that's what I got for now. So without further ado, Elizabeth, are you there? Can you hear me and can you speak? Elizabeth, you might, I think you're muted on your side.
You are correct. How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you great. How are things this morning?
They're good. Thank you. Yeah, I had to change phones because of a headphone situation. So sorry about that. All is well. Happy Saturday.
It is a great Saturday. All right. So I guess some of what I'd like to do is you're kind of an unknown to a lot of people. I've had the opportunity to meet you at Token Fest. And then again at Steam Fest, and so I've had a couple chances to interact, but I don't think that the majority of the Steam community sort of knows who you are. So do you want to give us some kind of introduction of like, who are you, what's your background, and then managing director is not a standard United States role. I've certainly heard it before, but maybe you can try to tell us from your perspective, what does it mean to be a managing director? So who are you? And you are now managing director. What does that mean?
So you can now call me, I guess, the doctor, right? MD? Just kidding. I'm not a doctor, however you are. Yes, so I've been on a couple of shows this week, and hopefully it looks like a lot of the same people have been on most of these shows. So quick background. Born and raised in Texas. Went to A&M, like you, my friend, Agrode, and didn't go far from there. Moved to Austin, where I've lived and had my professional career, which is probably 22 years at this point, mostly in advertising and marketing at agencies. I think I've worked at 3 or 4, so I like consistency and to stay at places. So I've only really worked at probably 4 places in that entire career, being in account service, account management, and managing teams. Touched all kinds of different industries, from real estate, healthcare, technology, obviously the huge .com boom here in Austin was huge back in 2000. Being in Austin, also doing a lot of state work, a lot of higher education, done some projects for UT, worked in performing arts, like a very a fun, interesting career that led me to touch on I said a lot of different things. And then, most recently was definitely intrigued in the cryptocurrency category. And I mentioned the other day, honestly, right time, right place. Bumped into Christy, who is, I'll probably will send out a press release about her next week. She was our head of human resources and is now basically head of operations. She's taking over finance. Obviously, you guys know we had a huge layoff right after Thanksgiving, and so we're a very lean team. And so anyway, bumped into Christy literally on like 6 in Congress in Austin, and she had on a Steemit t-shirt and struck up a conversation with her. And I had been trying to get out of advertising for some time because it's one of those industries that you can only take it for so long. And I had been itching to get out and go more client side. Anyway, struck up a conversation with her, found out what Steemit was, and was like, wow, I had no idea, because Steemit kept a very, very, very low profile. In fact, when I did my interviews, it was in a WeWork. It wasn't even in the actual office. They wouldn't disclose the address. So anyway, she told me more about the company, and me just being me, which you will all soon learn, I'm pretty much, I follow the WYSIWYG format, and I still do some DOS here and there. Kidding again. What you see is what you get. Struck up a conversation, asked if they were hiring, and they actually were. So that was at a time when Steemit was staffing up, wanting to build up a communications department. They had added on a few more finance people. They had 2 people in HR. And so I came on in May of 2018, built a team of about 8, which included copywriters, social media manager, who a lot of y'all met at Token Fest, public relations, special events, graphic design, a web person, video. The studio we actually had a very nice custom in-house production studio for the live stream. So I spent a lot of time doing that. We see how that went. And yeah, so then that kind of gets you caught up to today. So we had the layoffs. I was fortunate enough to stay with the company, and we really spent from end of November through the holidays figuring out, okay, what is it, how can we refocus and keep this thing going? And over that time, Ned took some time off. We were pretty much not communicating at all. And then, we got back right before Christmas, and he and the board had come up with the roadmap, which hopefully you all have seen, the mission, vision, and values. And then he had, I think did a lot of self-reflection on, where he thinks or where he thought he could better support the company. And it's funny, Agrod, he was on your show, or y'all had a conversation. I can't remember when it was, but you're like, why don't you, it was your show a couple of weeks ago. Why don't you not be CEO? Why don't you step back? Why don't you, and those plans had already in place. And so it was kind of funny. That was the first Discord show he did. And these plans had already in place. It was just, your thinking was spot on. We had already made that decision. He's definitely more of a visionary. I am more, let's execute things. Let's get things done. Give me an objective, and I will do everything I can to solve that objective. So that's really where my role comes in, which I think definitely over the last week, I feel even more confident that, people are like, well, she's in communications. She's only done 1 blog post. Like how, all of that. And true, it is. But like I told you and other people, I wasn't hired to write posts on steemit.com. I was hired to build a team. I was hired to, the challenge back then was how can we separate Steemit Inc., Steemit.com, and Steem, and then also be able to work on other projects. So that was a huge challenge. We spent, again, it was only 8 months, a lot of time doing research, user testing. So anyway, here we are today, and the focus is now on cost cutting, which we've talked about multiple times, with our infrastructure costs, our AWS costs, and then also bring in revenue. I mean, the whole time that I was, when I first started there, we weren't making any money. We weren't selling anything. There was no advertising. We weren't generating income. All we were doing was really spending a lot of money on structural costs, or infrastructure. Sorry. Anyway, so now we've focused on this new model to get back into Steemit.com, condenser, make those improvements, make it a better user experience, get more involved with the community, tap into those resources because there's so many out there, and just be smart. So that's why, again, me not being, obviously, you see my wallet account, a huge investor. I'm not a blogger. I'm not, I'm more of let's build teams, the right teams, let's foster, mentor, give people what they need to be successful. That's my job. That's who I am. I like to work out. I like hip hop music. What else? I love college football. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. Yeah, I want to have fun. Like last year was not fun, and I am serious. I take everything that I do very serious, but I also want to enjoy doing what I'm doing, and then we can enjoy being successful together. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight as to who I am. Yeah,
You're
fire away.
You're coming in. So first off, any of the other witnesses, both backup and top 20, are certainly welcome to ask some questions here. I don't mean to monopolize this, but if you guys are quiet, I'm just going to keep asking questions. You're coming in at a pretty rough time. I mean, some of the witnesses have been near revolt. We're at the bottom of what is about to become the longest bear market in the history of Bitcoin. You're at a point where Steemit literally has zero revenue. This is a ship that is in desperate need of turning around. What are the priorities? How do we? What is? So Ned put out a vision. I'm the like communities and things like that. It feels like a technological vision. What is the business vision for how Steemit turns from a company with a large speculative investment in Steem that they can burn to produce blockchain code into a world-class blockchain company, and what would that world-class blockchain company do?
So very good question. And, a lot of people have said, oh, wow, done in VUU, you've got a very challenging road ahead. And I see it as the opposite, which I see this time as, I can come in at this, bear market when, everything it is what it is, but that doesn't scare me. And in fact, I think it gives me the greatest opportunity to just turn this thing around and hopefully be able to say at the end of the day, in 12 months, whatever, that, we as a team and a company were able to survive through this time. So our immediate goal is we are working very hard on reducing the cost of running nodes, and our AWS bill, is astronomical. And it's been like that. Again, I've been here for 8 months, but it's been like this the entire time. And so as Steemit.com grew, as our user base grew, the costs just continued to increase. And so in hindsight, yeah, they talked about this, I'm pretty sure 18 months ago. I'm not sure, what happened between then and now, but the focus is reducing those costs. And I can tell you, we're making, as far as our projection goes, let me just say, for example, we were hoping to see some big improvements around the March-April timeframe. I'm happy to say that we've already had our AWS bills reduced in half, hoping that goes even lower. I should get some more statements in next week. And then as far as other costs, well, sadly, we did have huge layoffs. And so from just a company-wide expense overhead, our salaries have reduced. We all took pay cuts. We were in a huge lease here in Austin that was quite pricey. Fortunately, we were able to get out of that sooner than later. So again, we were expecting to be out of that in the March-April timeframe. We are out of it as of now. So that's a huge cost savings. And then we were anticipating, we do programmatic selling of Steem every month. That's our income. We were projecting prices at the 20-cent mark, and we're not at that level. So that's great also. We also expected advertising revenue not to kick in until the April timeframe. That has already started happening as of this month. So from an immediate, vision or, just business, what are we setting out to do? We're already hitting those objectives ahead of time. And so from a development standpoint, we are a very lean team. And so I have to be 100%, making sure the team that we have is in a good place. There was a lot of very little downtime over the holidays. And so we made the team really, really enforced going offline for a week and a half to get some rest, because I don't want people to get stressed out or burned out. Blockchain development, as you all know, there's, especially with RocksDB and what we're trying to do, it hasn't been done before. And so there's a lot of very intense work that goes into making these changes happen. So what I can say moving forward to keep this progress happening is we really are opening ourselves to the community. We've been talking about this on a couple of shows, but for a long time you all saw there was nothing happening on Condenser. We weren't even looking at GitHub. We were focused on discovery, as we were calling it. We weren't even, unless they were like super critical pull requests, we basically were just ignoring the whole thing. So that all has changed. And so we are now focused on Condenser. We're focused on, obviously we got HiveMind out, which was a huge undertaking. But just to put that into perspective, HiveMind was at, 75, 80% complete. And then we were focused on some other projects. And that's the same basic situation as communities and basically SMTs. As y'all recall, we were doing weekly burn-up reports on SMTs, and all of that had to come to a screeching halt. So basically what we're doing is putting our focus back on what matters most, Steemit.com and Steem the blockchain. So Steemit, we're going to do a lot more focusing on community pull requests, tapping into the community. There's so many plugins and things that are just already out there that it just makes more sense to, accept a lot of these great enhancements. And then as far as the blockchain goes, we're still focusing really hard on lowering those infrastructure costs of running the nodes. And we're running into some challenges again, because it's all brand new, but I'm confident we'll get there. We'll get to the place that we want to be from a AWS standpoint, and then focus hard and fast on communities and SMTs. So, we've been calling it SMT Lite, but really the more I hear about the spec, it's pretty much, and I think Andrarchy renamed it because SMT Lite wasn't very accurate. It's more of a version 1 that will be basically 95%. I think there's a few other features that will, be quote unquote version 2, but it won't be far behind. So did that answer?
It is the answer that you're providing. Who am I to say if that answers the question or not? Okay, so the next, so I mean that definitely does give a sense of here's the business. Like as I try to break this down, what does the community care about? They care about what's the business roadmap, and they care about what's the product roadmap. Product roadmap, if I'm regurgitating what you've just shared, is RocksDB and Condenser are sort of the next two things. The RocksDB to go cut the cost, Condenser to basically, I guess in back to the business part, there's no cutting expenses is great, but there's no revenue. And in order to generate revenue, it seems like Steemit's now getting into the ad game, and that's how businesses that have a lot of page views actually make money. So it seems like getting back to Condenser is really about getting back to maximizing the number of page views so that you can actually generate revenue. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have our traffic is phenomenal, and gosh, when I look back at the analytics going back to 2016, I'm like, dang it! If we only had that traffic today, I mean, we still have, amazing traffic, but golly, we were really killing it a couple of years ago. So yeah, that is the goal. We need Condenser to be more user friendly. We need signups to be way more simplified and instantaneous for users. So we are building a custom ad program. We've been running, we quickly threw up AdSense to just see like what the response would be. And Condenser is putting code on there, it's not as easy as, your typical WordPress site. So obviously too, we have the wallet to deal with. And so we're very cognizant of the security implications of putting some advertising code in there. So yeah, advertising is our focus. But I want to make sure that, while we're working on RocksDB, we have another team that is working side by side, working on Condenser. Once RocksDB is done, they will focus then on SMTs. Meanwhile, the Condenser team is working on, now that HiveMind is done, we're going to start the communities work. So it's not going to be SMTs, then communities. Like, these things should be working in tandem and hopefully deliver. I'm hoping communities can happen sooner than we even projected before the holidays.
Yeah, I'm not even sure when. To me, the last thing that I really think of as like a product roadmap was back sometime around the layoffs. Ned put out like a little Excel chart that more or less put RocksDB out to the March, or I think it's the March timeline. I might
yes.
be getting, yeah.
No, you're correct. So yeah, our plan, we should be doing internal testing. I can remember I don't have it in front of me, but internal testing was going to happen next week. I feel like we're probably a week or two behind that. So to get to your point, I will get back to next week putting out and updating those product roadmaps as well as business roadmaps. You and I had a great conversation yesterday. So, so that people don't have to keep asking these questions, if we can regularly put them out, again, those SMT burnups, that's a perfect example of, hey, here's everything. Like, it doesn't matter if we're late, if we're ahead, whatever, this is what it is. So my goal is to very simply next week start putting out those product roadmaps, even a business roadmap, because then I don't have to go on 55 shows a week. Just kidding. I really do enjoy this. But it's all out there, even some financial reporting. What are we doing, with our programmatic selling? What does that look like? So if I can just put it all out there, then again, it's so much easier and efficient. And then, if people have further questions about that roadmap or suggestions like, hey, I could help you in this area, we are totally open to any and all of that at this point.
Yeah, there is something nice about bear markets that give everybody the impetus to change. The token prices.
Amen, low, brother.
The attitudes have shifted. I mean, Ned said everything is on the table, and I do actually really appreciate the attitude of, there's some shit going on, but this is actually, if we want to go rebuild and like retune and set this thing on a different course, then this is actually a great time for that, because people are willing to change because shit literally has to change.
Exactly.
Here's a comment from Frederica. Any other social apps, startup, or growth companies will spend a lot of their time trying to understand what their users like about the interface, what they don't like, and what can be done to retain users and increase average time on the site. Steemit has an advantage that hardly any other social app has, which is that the users themselves are interested and even have the incentive to help improve the user experience. So have you given thought to how Steemit can more effectively use the interest of the community to harvest suggestions and frustrations? I mean, this gets back to me of one of the complaints that I've been putting out there, which I've done my best to try to like both at times just speak for myself, but also try to aggregate concerns. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that that the development culture at Steemit has for a long time felt like a closed source project, despite this being an open source one. So how do we shift from being an organization where there's essentially one lead dev or one lead dev team to something like putting community input back onto the radar, or even like integrating these two? I guess one of one of my favorite examples is I got into sustainable development marketing when I was working for a big chemical company. And they said, look, what we don't want you to do is have, here's my business plan and here's my sustainable development plan. Those shouldn't be two documents. They should be one document of how your business plan is going to be sustainable. And the same thing I would say here. We don't want a development plan and a community development plan. We want one plan that incorporates sort of the needs of Steemit and like how the community can actually get involved. How can we change the culture? How do we start making it so that the community feels like Condenser, which is one of the most prominent and important apps in this entire ecosystem, is something that the community has some ownership of, has some ability to make changes to, and has a prayer of getting things literally on the main page to get improved to where we feel like it's a world-class app.
Yeah, this has been a big topic for us internally because, again, when I started, again, I was hired to promote Steemit.com and to really promote Steem as, a very developer-friendly ecosystem blockchain, with all the tutorials, open source, all of that. And in the reality, especially when we started working on, and I think that's where the whole like closed source mentality came from, is we were working on other projects behind the scenes and we weren't doing anything to Condenser. So from a public open source GitHub perspective, y'all weren't seeing us doing anything. And, that wasn't the case. We were working on other projects behind the scenes. So just moving forward, no reason to, continue harping on the past, is we are open source. We are going to be taking these pull requests seriously, reviewing them, accepting them, asking for, hey, we want to implement this. If you have a solution, send us your proposal. There's, I can't remember who put it out there, but there's a search plugin that was announced a week or two ago. There is a Steem key, feature that's already done. There are so many things already existing that we are now evaluating, especially, from my perspective as running a business and a profitable business. For example, if that search plugin is out there, what does it take to implement that? So tell me, engineering, if you have this, what is it going to take to put that into Condenser? So we will be way more open source. You're going to see, we're going to do a lot of prioritization of the existing pull requests. I want to say there's like 19 out there right now that we need to review. We're going to be accepting things. We will put out sort of RFPs, if you will, for, certain functions or features. May even put out what are the top 10 things you would like to see happen to Steemit.com to improve the user experience. From a community's perspective, we need to, probably publish the spec for that and ask for public opinion on, what are we missing? What would you add to it? Things like that. So there was, when there's conversations of, okay, so Hive Mind, open source, of course, but then community, should we keep that? Should that be closed source? I'm like, no, we are now, my goal and vision is to really fully embrace the original intent of this whole concept of open source, of community driven, all of that, like, the way the witnesses, why you are doing what you do, what the purpose is. And so we need to embrace that and really use that so that when we do climb out of this market, we can show the world how this thing really works, how, whether or not, again, forget what happened last year, but here we have a world-class social experience built on blockchain technology and all the great things that it can do for people. So my vision really is, if we're open source and this is our, original intent, then let's get back to that and let's focus on that and let's really foster the community, because that just shows proof of the entire concept, which is open source and transparency.
Yeah, I think the more, so I have a small theater background, and in theater, you talk about the fourth wall being the break between you as a presenter on stage and the audience. And when you break the fourth wall, you actually interact with the audience. So parts of what you were saying sound good to me, where you're like, okay, we're going to work on getting pull requests in here and making sure that we're taking things that the community has built. The parts that resonate the most with me is when you start talking about, all right, let's go ask the audience of users what it is that they, what they're hoping to see, what's missing, how can we help them, and I think the more that you're able to not just say, this is what we're doing, who wants to build it, but sort of like, hey community, hey people that are doing this all the time, and like the guys that are literally content creating every day and building businesses every day, you know, we want to build tools. These are some of the ones that we're thinking about. What's high on your priority list? And again, not have a, what is the list for the community? What is the list that Steemit's going to work on? But sort of like help merge those two so that the community, and that takes some sort of process or system by which Steemit is taking in feedback. And there's different ways of doing that, from just a post soliciting it to devs getting on a call to like customer service people getting on a call to I don't even know all the different options, but you know, it starts by,
they're almost limitless, actually.
They are. So you know, to me it matters less of what is the exact process by which community is able to input things, and it matters more, does a process exist whereby community can input things and actually have some Steemit dev attention to this. Like I don't think it matters the exact process as much as it does, hey, listening to what you guys want is actually now important to this company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, with Andraki's help, we're going to be able to communicate that, because you're right. I mean, is there a process? Not yet, but that's what we're working on. So we're starting, you know, we're kind of having to, we're working in a scrappy way right now. Just what can we do to make some immediate wins happen? You know, where can we succeed? Where can we achieve some of those cost cutting things? And we're seeing those happen. So now, what's even, you know, more great is we're able to say, okay, now we can actually look ahead. We're not just focused on today. We can look a couple of weeks out, and let's start looking at these pull requests. And I would love to put a process in place on, you know, once we can clean all these up and prioritize, and looking even beyond that, what does the process look like? Because there has to be a process. The same thing with delegations. You know, what is the process with delegations? There isn't one, but there will be, because if I'm responsible for moving this company forward and supporting our third-party partners, you know, app development, there has to be some rhyme or reason to all of it. Otherwise, I can't measure any success. If I'm supposed to be reporting financials and projections, things like that, there have to be processes in place for all of that.
So, I guess when I'll step aside with sort of the two biggest elephants in the room are, you know, I think Jesta actually said it pretty well, that for the last multiple years, Steemit has acted as if it's completely unaccountable. You know, the Steemit is a private business with private shareholders, of which Steem Power holders actually don't own an ounce of Steemit. They own this public blockchain, but they don't own Steemit, because Steemit is its own private company with its own private shares. And for the past while, this community has certainly rallied around this thought that Steemit has not held itself accountable, doesn't see itself accountable, and you know, being accountable to the community isn't their highest priority. And as part of that, we're seeing the power down, the full 40 million Steem power down. Those are sort of the two I one is like a very visible evidence of the other in that this community is very much against the power down that's happening, but
Mm-hmm.
Steemit isn't accountable to anybody, so they can do exactly what they want, and it doesn't matter that literally, I don't know, 70% of this community is shouting at them, stop doing it.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's where it gets to be. Yeah, feel sorry for Elizabeth. She's in a very tough situation. Honestly, the power down situation. I feel like where the market sits, where the business Steemit Inc. from a financial perspective, I feel like that was going to happen at some point. The powering down, whether it was in smaller increments or what have you. And so then when, the alleged hard fork 21 was thrown out there and, was it a knee jerk reaction from Ned? Probably. Was I consulted with that? No. Did I, my first day in this, public now announced role, had my first board meeting, and, the first thing I asked them was, can we please stop the power down? Because then I'm going to look like the biggest, baddest MFer that ever rolled into town, like the girl who stopped the power down. But that's not the case. I mean, trust me, I wish it was. But we are talking about that. They know it's an issue. Um, is there a plan to stop that? I don't think so. I am listening, and I keep telling I'm like, Anjarchy, bring me, give me more fuel that I can, give to the board. Like if I just need more and more ammo, but in reality, it's not so much about the power down because it's more about looking forward. So the alliance, the block trades proposal that's coming in for this sort of Steem treasury proposal, we will invest in those things. And so I feel like the power down is, I don't have any control of that. And I forget what your other comments were, but as far as, being more transparent and communicative.
And accountable. Accountable is the word to really address along with this.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I think in my perspective, bringing the community in more, whether it's from pull requests or helping with public relations or this or that, then it becomes less about me and my team of 14 being accountable, but we're all accountable. And so that's how I see this thing really being successful and winning, is that we could all be accountable. And so if I promise to do something, I'm going to do it. If I ask the community for something and they agree to do it, then I expect them to do it. So I can't speak to what's happened prior to now as far as accountability, lack of transparency, the communication issues. That's in the past. So moving forward, yes, I do feel there is a responsibility that Steemit has. If we can't deliver on something that the community is asking for, but the community can deliver on, then we're going to tap into those now. So I think gone are the days of, well, we're just going to keep that behind closed doors. We're not going to tell you what we're doing, and you'll see it when you see it. That's not the case. I mean, with the advertising program, you brought up, and a concept that I haven't even gotten there yet is, how could we create this overall Steem ad program where if, whatever CoinMarketCap wants to market on Steemit.com, Steem Monsters, Busy, whatever, they can have their choice of, I want to advertise on all Steem apps, or I want to, cherry pick these guys, whatever. So again, like I said, the options are pretty limitless. So I haven't it's only been a week. Haven't been able to really do any long range strategic planning, like really put some milestones out there, but that's what we're working towards. And we're looking for new office space. Like I'm dealing with like bills from September of 2018. Like we're trying to clean up our books. Like I'm selling off equipment. There's all these things behind the scenes that y'all don't see that are just day to day what it takes to run a business. So, obviously, I think I put in one of my posts, like just being cognizant that, again, I'm going to try to post more, but I'm also like paying bills from October 2018. Like there's not enough time in the day. So accountability, absolutely moving forward is the goal. I have to be accountable not only to my team, but to the board, but to everyone in the community.
Do you think the board will reflect that? I actually, so a lot of what you say resonates with me, and a lot of what I like your vision and I like where you're headed. My biggest concern is, you were brought in to bring about sort of a different approach. How are we going to get the board to come on board? Because I like a lot of what you're saying, and I actually think that you have a nice vision for this. And if you really have cut AWS bills in half, that's a great start. It seems like there's some healthy development, but is this? I guess one of the concerns is here's the new Steemit, same as the old Steemit, or do you feel like there's actually a real commitment to act differently on part of the people that not just do the day-to-day, but actually run Steemit?
Right. And that was a huge concern of mine. And so this wasn't, an overnight decision to put me in this position or create this role. I had lots of talks with the board, and that was my number one concern. It's like I have no doubt in the world that I can do this job. However, if the board doesn't support me and let me make decisions that need to be made, like if my hands are held, then no way. I mean, that was one of the things I said. If you are not going to be open and allow me to do the things that need to be done, then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be set up for failure. No way. So I feel like they are very receptive. They obviously trust me, or they, wouldn't have handed me the keys. But that's going to be an ongoing discussion. And, if, for example, for the powering down scenario, say I wanted to use, the community to implement SMTs or a wallet feature, whatever. And if I was met with resistance, my whole thing is I would never go into a situation without the backup needed or the justification. I want this, and this is why, and this is what it's going to do for us. Like these are the benefits. If I'm met with resistance, every time, then it's not going to work. So I don't feel that's the case. I feel like I have enough. Again, just anything that I would propose would be backed with sound reasoning. So, I wouldn't have taken on this role if I felt like I was going to have my hands tied the whole time.
Do you think you can share from the board's perspective what the benefit of the power down is? Why are they pushing for this still? Why is it continuing? What is the benefit, if you are at liberty to discuss that from their perspective?
And I that same question, and really it's from, I would say, let's see, how's the best way to answer this? And for the company, I feel like it's a way to protect future assets. I think you're going to see things like the Steem Alliance, and investments into further blockchain development. I think there's a way to put those funds into future endeavors. Honestly, I don't have an answer. To be perfectly honest, there is no real justification of it's because of XYZ. Yeah. Not a real good answer there. Sorry about that, Agrod.
You know, I recognize you're in a tough spot. I don't envy this gig. This is a hard gig that you have just walked into. Hey, you know, the witnesses are revolting, prices down, people are angry, and why don't you go from here? It's not easy, and I recognize that you have a board and a culture and a community. You have a board and corporate culture to change, and a entire chain's worth of 3 years of history to sort of right the ship on. The like scope of what needs to get accomplished in your role on top of just the day-to-day like business decisions is large. But I think what's most promising to me is that I feel like at the very least that you hear us, that you understand us, and have it's been 1 week, so you're still in grace period land. But you know, what I've noticed with the crypto community is that this is one of the least patient groups of people I've ever encountered. So whatever timeline you think you have to show progress and start communicating, I would cut it in half or more. Yeah. Because this is it's a temperamental crowd that can literally go wherever the fuck they want and do what they want because it's crypto and they'll move there. And so hopefully your plans for getting out financial transparency, getting out a sort of new process for how development might work, especially in terms of condenser. Your timeline here isn't infinite. I would say if it's like beyond a month, which in any other industry would be like, all right, well, we're just getting started and this is great. I would say something like in crypto, it's got to be done where you have a solid process, a solid plan, and are executing on that in short order. And maybe that's too aggressive. Other people can chime in on that, but that's been my experience.
No, and you know, again, I've seen that from the community over the last 8 months, which was also very frustrating because, you know, there was a period where we were not communicating at all, and you know, people thought Ned was, you know, dead or and I'm like, we have to communicate. So I definitely understand the you know, just how the community, like, you know, I don't want to say impatient, but you know, in the world that we live in, it's like, well, why can't you just answer the question? And so my background in advertising, and especially in account service, I mean, that's how we roll. Like, you are moving and executing and delivering and reporting like minute to minute to minute. So I'm used to that kind of turnaround time. I definitely, you know, also understand, you know, working with, you know, in that industry, there was the creative team. Here it's the development team. Like, well, we need 2 weeks to come up with a concept. And it was always like, no, you can have 2 days. Like, let's move this along. And so I think from a project management standpoint and making things happen, we're probably changing the way we approach, you know, whether that's a Scrum method or if we go back to Agile. You know, it's kind of one of those, like, whatever we can do to be accountable and deliver faster, more efficient, and if that, you know, entails bringing in the community, that's how we're going to do it. That's how I see it. So again, the more I can tap into the community, the more we're all responsible for delivering things, right? I mean, it's kind of a shared accountability system is how I see it.
We're nearing in on an hour, which was longer than I wanted to do, but I think this was a really healthy discussion to get some thoughts out there and hear plans and visions and schemes for implementation. If there's any questions from the witnesses, you guys have been quiet, but you're certainly welcome to come on air and just share what it is. Any questions you have before, both Androrky and Elizabeth are welcome to stay. But I do want to switch back over to sort of more pure witness things. And I don't know. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to say thank you. Communication that you guys have been opening up is really great. We appreciate it. I know, as Krim was saying, we're sometimes a bit critical, but I think it's because we all care about this place and are passionate. And it's nice to see that passion from you guys too. And yes, you don't have to be on Discord every day on a voice chat, but the openness is wonderful, and we hope it continues. I think you answered my questions to the best of your ability. I think it's an important topic that probably needs to be discussed more, and I appreciate your openness to discuss it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And all that, I mean, y'all, this, again, it's, I guess y'all will realize this, I'm a very optimistic person. I'm always glass half full. So, I am with this team to support me, that I am not afraid of the situation that, the cards that I've been dealt. I'm excited. So again, thank you. I appreciate that.
Other thoughts from the witnesses? And Androrky, you've been kind of quiet, and you've been one of the lead voices to this community for a while. Anything else that you'd like to share or add?
No, I think Elizabeth covered all the important parts, and I'm not really going to be able to add anything there. I think she covered all the major bases. I'm here if people for unrelated questions or something, but I answer to her now, and we have a really great working relationship, and we talk a lot about all this stuff. So yeah, I support her.
I have a question based on something Elizabeth had mentioned a little while ago about the activity or the lack of activity. We had been seeing on GitHub for Condenser there for a while, and a lot of that was due to other projects being worked on, and I would assume some of those would be like Rock's Database, HiveMind. Are there any other projects that maybe the community doesn't know about that we could possibly look forward to coming out anytime within the next 6 months or so?
So in regards to like other projects that we were working on last year, those are no longer our focus. So we are putting all of our efforts into Condenser and just making that. So that includes communities, which is a big project, other UI improvements. And then, from a blockchain perspective, RocksDB is continuing, and then SMTs will be next out of that. Those are really the only projects that we have on the horizon for this year.
For the SMTs, can we get possible, as soon as it is possible, can we get an updated timeline as far as a test net being released for the witnesses and developers? And, because we did have one that was set for January, and that didn't quite work out well, which is, I'll explain. I'm not complaining, but
sure.
I'm just asking if it'd be possible, when possible, to get an updated timeline for that.
Yes. I want that as well. And so next week, I hope we've basically, like I said, since the holiday, we had our heads down working on RocksDB and all this other just infrastructure cost reduction. And so now that we've implemented things like HiveMind and RocksDB is, moving along, we will put together, I need now that product roadmap. And I hope to get some, it's always, dates are just, it is what it is. But as long as we're reporting, like we can say, I'm projecting SMTs to be ready. I'm just throwing this out there. This is not factual. March 1st. So then what I can do is go back to reporting weekly product updates. So if we're supposed to be here, oh, it looks like we're 2 days past that, or oh my gosh, we're 3 days ahead of that. So just putting that out into the community it makes my life so much easier. So yes, to answer your question, product roadmap, all that stuff, we're now able to get back to traditional project management and those types of reports. So I will definitely, as soon as I possibly can, get something out to you guys via post.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Did you get my email, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. You bet.
Okay.
Could I jump in real quick?
Go for it, Matt.
Sure. I have two, I guess what I would call product suggestions for Condenser, since you're working on it, that you might want to consider. So one thing is I've been using the Steve app a lot recently, mostly because of their keychain integration. But I also really like some of the other features they have. Namely, they have a recommendation feature. So like after you read a post, it recommends similar posts below it. And then there's also recommendations in the feed. And I personally really like that because I find, we don't have like tons of content on, Steam. And a lot of times it's hard to find. So that's really cool if you're just kind of in this zoning out mindset of just wanting to read stuff. You could just easily be like, oh, here's some similar things, and just click on it, and it kind of keeps you in that zone of just staying on the site and finding more content. So I'd love to see something like that on steemit.com.
Yeah, no, that sounds, I love that kind of stuff too. Tell me again where that.
It's on Steve.
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
Steeve.
Yep. They also have a communities feature that we're interested in as well. So thanks for bringing that up. We're definitely in talks with those guys.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great. I'm looking forward to their community stuff too.
Did you have a second one, Matt?
Yeah, the other one is something we actually talked about briefly at Steam Fest. Is the idea of Steemit having the option to save users' passwords, to store them for them when they sign up. Because, we found out with Steam Monsters very quickly that, people will lose their passwords on a regular basis, their master passwords, and then, have completely lost access to their account. And I just think as, we're trying to be a more user-friendly blockchain platform, I think as long as we say, hey, here's an option for us to store your password for you, and have a recovery option if you lose it, which they can opt in or out of. I think that would be really helpful for people to not have the bad experience of losing their password and that be it.
Yeah, that's a challenging one that we're always talking about, and I think it's so true. Passwords. Oh my gosh, I get all the support tickets that come in through, whether it's contact us or info at or support at, all of those emails we get, and it's just like, oh my, everyone loses their password, and hopefully, I might have mentioned this. Actually, I don't think I did. So for the advertising, the custom program, right now we're just doing that on non-logged in users because for security reasons, and we talked about this yesterday, we just want to make sure that we're 100% because the majority of people log in with their master password.
Right.
So what we're trying to do, so from an advertising standpoint, for those logged in users, we need to separate the wallet out of the social feature. So hopefully what we're coming up with will be a way that allows people to better recover or reset their password. So that is certainly on the table because it's just inevitable. I do it on all kinds of accounts. If I have an Amazon account, and if a kid texts me like, I need the Amazon account password, so then they have it, and I'm like, oh great, now I got to change the password again. And I'm like, what is the password? I do it too. I'm guilty of it. So just because of the nature of the heightened level of security, it's just been a very unuser friendly process at this point. So that is all of those things are on the table, especially as we look to separating the wallet out of steemit.com.
Okay, that's great. I mean, looking forward to all that stuff, and thank you, as other people said, for your time today.
You bet. Good talking to you.
All right. Elizabeth, thank you so much. And Jarky, thank you. I appreciate you both taking the time to be here and talking with us. I'd like to switch over to the remainder of the show, which is a little bit less than what I had initially intended, but especially because Elizabeth is just getting her sea legs and communication legs under her. I did want to give her some extra time here. So
great. Thank you, Egbert. I'm going to bounce. I've got little people to tend to, so I hope everyone has a great weekend. I look forward to an awesome week next week.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for communicating. You have a hell of a job in front of you, and contact me in ways that you think I can support you, because I'd like to see you be successful.
Thanks. I will. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. So switching over to witness mode. I guess the first question is, how do we fork off Steemit? It's a little joke. All right. So what is the priorities? What do you guys think that we need to do? How do we, the challenge isn't just on Elizabeth and Steemit to sort of right this ship. How do we take us from a what should be a top 10 coin that's sitting in the 40s? How do we get our price from 35 back to above $1? How do we get out of this mess? What do you think the priorities ought to be? And we can do that. Actually, shit, I should really do. Why don't you guys go introduce yourselves first? Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then hopefully we can go through and talk about how we can get out of the hole we're in. Follow, do you want to start with a quick intro?
Sure. And up front, I've only got about another 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I just my grandkids are here, and I didn't. Anyway, so I'm follow BTC News. My witness partner, Crimson Clad. I think I think everybody knows her. I'm more in the background most of the time. We top 20 witness. Took us a while to get there. We're appreciative of the supporters. We help support and secure the blockchain that people's money is on. Make sure that we produce blocks on time. Try not to miss blocks. And so as far as, like you said, Steem really should be a top 10 coin. But it's definitely not up to just witnesses. It's up to the whole community. It's something that everybody on this platform who has an investment already in this platform, they want to see their investment, gain value. So it's up to everybody, developers, marketers, every aspect of the community, every single person. And one of the ways we need outside people to come in, and we need them to invest into the coin. One way to do that is, first of all, you got to make them feel that Steem is a good investment. And I think Steem is, personally, just because of all the dApps that we have out there. We're very competitive, right up there with Ethereum. I think, EOS got a lot of hype. I'm not talking bad about EOS, but right now EOS is only a gambling platform. And again, I'm not saying I'm not trying to bad talk EOS at all. I own some EOS, just to be upfront. But right now they're gambling. Well, Steem has freaking every kind of dApp you can think of. I mean, we have a big variety. So if people are going to invest in Steem, they need a reason to. When I go invest in a coin, I look at what do they offer, what's the usability of the coin, what do they have on their white paper, what do they plan on doing, where do I see that coin in a year from now. And I think the foundation, the Steem Alliance that's starting to form, that's in its infancy right now, is going to make a huge impact if it's done right on this chain, because I think the foundation will bring in some marketing for Steem, We'll bring in some new developers for the Steem blockchain, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't really have the full perspective of what they can accomplish, but I know it could be a lot more than what we have right now. So in the long run, we need the entire community. People that everybody has different skills on this platform. It's amazing, I mean, doctors and lawyers and economists and professors and developers, and if everybody. And then we have people like Yabamat that I'm pretty sure Yabamat's and StudKit were the ones responsible for Keychain, which is just awesome. And building, I mean, damn, we should have had something like Steem Keychain 3 years ago. I'm surprised it took so long, and finally somebody stood up and went out and did it. And it's tools like that that are needed. And then you have Steem Press out there. Obviously, do I even need to mention Steem Monsters? Because I mean, everybody knows about that. But so if we keep building stuff like that, if the community keeps going out and building dApps and tools for this blockchain, people are going to take notice. And I think in the long run, when Steemit hopefully brings us SMTs, that will also help. And with the foundation, what it can do and the ideas it comes up with for developments on this chain, I think will definitely help move the chain forward also.
Rock on. So that was a bit of the merger of both the introduction and how do we dig ourselves out of this mess. Frederica, you can do one or both. Who are you? And if you'd like to answer right away, you're welcome to. But how would we dig ourselves out of this chain, or out of the rut that we're in?
All right. So hello, people. Start with who I am. I co-run the Steem Press Witness and also the Steem Press application together with my partner Hovo. We're currently at top 32 Witness, but I think most people just know us mostly from the application that we presented at Steemfest and have been running now for almost a year, I think, to this date, although in a more full-time focus the last half a year. I was also on Steem quite some time before we started Steem Press, mostly blogging about what was going on in the space sector because I had a job in the European Space Agency, and I'm also an economist by trade. So how do I think we can get Steem ahead? I think embracing the competitive advantages that Steem as a blockchain can give to social applications and also other startups and growth companies in form of enabling a type of environment that other applications trying to do the similar thing just can't do without Steem power or without utilizing the Steem blockchain. I think we need to just demonstrate it from application to application that if you build it with a Steem integration where people can log in with their Steem account and we're holding Steem power as a business, gives you a competitive advantage, then there will be sustainable demand for the token that can actually grow. And I feel like a lot of the dApps that we saw in the very first stages were mostly focused on the part of what can we do if we just promise away free money to whoever uses this app, which I think if that's the question, then the answer can be pretty much anything. So I think we need more solid business models that also drive in investment, because if you demonstrate that one website that holds Steem power and fosters a co-creation experience on their website outperforms a similar website elsewhere that does not use it, well, then it will drive them to earn more money because they are having a competitive advantage, and others will like to do the same thing, and that creates demand. So I think that ought to be the focus. What is it that we've learned from 2 or 3 years on Steemit that has been unique, that has been different? I think the best examples is just that websites can attract and retain users that try to have a more fruitful set of conversations on on the comments that come back to because they feel like they are not only earning tokens, but that they have an ownership in it. I think that's a very important distinction. If you tell someone that you can earn tokens from using this app, then the first thing they'll think about is, okay, how can I cash this out? How can I go buy a Coca-Cola with this money? Whereas if you flip it around and instead you say, you can use this app and become a co-owner, then the mindset sets from how can I sell this to how can I help this thing improve so that I can get more wealthy because I own a share in it. So I think driving that mindset in people, I mean, if I were to give Steemit a slogan today, I would say Steem a little bit yours, trying to emphasize the fact that you become a co-owner and take advantages of what that does. And I think Steemit ought to be the first DApp or on the Steem blockchain to really emphasize that and say that you, the users, own a little bit of this business, or if not, in type of owning actual shares, but in the sense that we share the same token and we get the same value from it. And really then emphasize the co-creation. Feel free to Google co-creation if you're not used to the term. And user-centric innovation. I think that will be the main thing that has to be done. And it has to be done with a clearer strategy in mind for actually using the competitive advantage of the Steem token. Because without the competitive advantage, then there's nothing really except for some store of value that hopefully gets valuable by people holding it. But I think we can do better than that.
Yeah, I think, I was telling Elizabeth, or asking Elizabeth about a culture shift for Steemit. I hadn't really thought about one for Steem, and that certainly, that's in my brain. I will be thinking about that. I think that's a great point. And I guess it goes without saying, Follow, I thought that we have to build dApps. Yes, we need more dApps because that's how we get monies. All right, LL Farms, who are you? And if you'd like, how can we help get Steem out of the rut that it's been in?
Good morning. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. A really good conversation happening. My name is Justine, LL Farms on the platform. I am here to represent my project C Squared, which is actually one of the first fully inclusive curation groups on the platform. Anyone is a curator. The goal is to bring all curation efforts together to help support authors more while also encouraging engagement and helping authors find their community, which I believe is the key to user retention. We're a nonprofit, and actually we're a little different because there's a lot of community witnesses on the platform, and usually as soon as they start their community, they say, hey, we need to be a witness so we can run our project or whatever it is, which I think is really the wrong attitude to have here. We actually started our community or curation project 8 months ago, had no interest in being a witness whatsoever because our goal was curation and to do it right. And as we realized, and by the way, one of our co-founders is a extremely talented witness operator and had ran the Curie top 20 witness for the last year. What we realized is a lot of the backup witnesses were not actually capable of doing some of the things that are required. And we felt that it was our responsibility at that point, since we had the project under control, to run a witness out of our own pockets to ensure that the backup witnesses, and I'm not saying all, but to ensure that as a backup witness that we are technically capable to do that as well. And when I say we, I mean Mark Angel Truman, not me. So that's something that is really important to us as well. We're transparent. Everything goes back to the community. And the goal is really to do more than just one vote. That sort of is an issue with curation groups these days. So our goal is actually to open curation to the community, crowdsource it in a way, allow anyone to be a part of it, and then also take those authors, uplift them, engage on their posts, and make sure they stay. We also are paying in Steem for individuals to engage on posts because we need content consumers as well as content creators. So that's sort of an overview of our project. The witness we've had up we're in our 3rd month now, not missed any blocks. I feel that we're a very reliable witness. And we are horrible at promoting ourselves because we're all curators and like to be behind the scenes. So that's who I am. As far as how to get Steem to where it needs to be, I would agree with what's already been said here. I think it's the community's job as much as it is anyone else's. I think we put way too much on the witnesses. They're here to secure the blockchain, and they do have a responsibility to that blockchain and community because they are compensated for doing so. But I don't think it's all on them. I think as a community, we need to be doing that. And personally, for me, marketing is huge. Huge. We have no brand, we have no direction, we have no way to really even tell anyone about Steem in a very easy way. And I think that's really, really important. And other than that, I think the developments that are happening, taps are happening. Going to TronFest this last week was a huge eye-opener. Everybody loves Steem Monsters. We signed up multiple people just through Steem Monsters alone. Everybody wants to know about Steem. And quite frankly, I think we have the best blockchain out there because we have a community that is, well, 1 in a million. And we need to actually show the world that. And I think that would be a huge, huge change for us personally.
Thank you all, Farms. Real Wolf, who are you and how do you think we can get out of this, the rut that we've been in?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm the Real Wolf, but you can call me Wolf. I'm a top 20 witness. I'm also a developer and someone who is very interested about blockchain technology in general and about creating businesses on top of it. But I will try to keep this short, so I will just link my website in the chat, so I can don't have to spend so much time explaining myself, because I don't think that's what this show should be about. Not about explaining myself who I am. Now, regarding the question, what I believe needs to change in the future, as someone who has the second last position, much of those what I believe in has already been said. However, I believe that the first solution should be to fix the most important problems, and not to try build on a fundament which is wrong or which is not good enough. And for me, one of the biggest reasons why Steem currently has a very low price in comparison as it should be is because I believe that the current inflation, the amount of Steem that is being generated, is not being used the right way. And Frederica said it pretty good. People oftentimes who are here and who have the mindset of, okay, I will create a post and then I will get some rewards and then I will power down and then I will sell. I mean, oftentimes they have good reasons. Maybe they need that money. But even if they would need that money, if they would have the need or the idea that, okay, if I keep my money or my Steem in my account and I'm not powering it down, instead I'm using it to, I don't know, to bring value, then that's what we need. Yeah, but I don't know if, but that's a very, very difficult topic. I mean, a very difficult point, because on the one hand, inflation is important to give incentive to people to do something. But if we have too much inflation into the wrong hands, then we will have an ever-existing sell pressure. And even though Steem is a very, very valuable blockchain, which is producing much more value than, for example, something like Bitcoin Gold, which is pretty much just I mean, in my opinion, is not good enough in comparison to Steem, then we shouldn't try to increase even more the strengths of Steem. I mean, of course we should do that, but first we should try to find out what keeps Steem down and what prevents or what prevents Steem from getting onto the positions where cryptocurrencies are, which are providing very, very few of the positive attributes and strengths of Steem.
Matt, who are you, and what do you think we can do to dig out of the rut?
Hey, yeah, I'm Yabat Matt, Yaba P Matt. You guys can just call me Matt. You know, most notably, I'm the creator of Steem Monsters with Aggroed, but I try to kind of keep that separate. That's a separate thing from my being a witness. So, you know, that's a business that Aggroed and I run, and is a for-profit business. But separately, both Aggroed and I are also top witnesses, and so, you know, we like to try to make sure that we do things that are not for-profit, for the betterment of the blockchain and the platform as a whole. So, you know, one example is the keychain extension, which, as Follow BTC News said, is one of those things I just couldn't believe didn't exist all this time. We also have another really big project that we're hoping to announce in the very near future called Steem Engine, which is basically just going to be a way to create tokens on the blockchain using a sidechain platform that was developed by Harpagon. So, you know, since there's tons of apps right now on Steam that are kind of making their own tokens and waiting for SMTs, this will be a way for them to make those tokens on the blockchain using a similar mechanism that Steem Monsters does for its cards. And then, you know, once SMTs are released, they can feel free to switch over to those or not. There's a lot we could talk about that. I'm not going to go into it too much now, but keep an eye out for that launch. So, you know, as far as how can we dig out of the rut, I think we just need to be able to attract users and developers and apps to the platform. I mean, we have some really good, you know, benefits to Steem that other platforms don't have, most notably the user base. The word is not really out there on that, and it's getting harder and harder as other blockchain platforms are aggressively going after apps and users, and they have, you know, very large pockets to do that with. I think Tron is a good example of that. So it's one of those things where the Steem Foundation that's being discussed could really come into play. Like, if there's a group that can go out, like some of these other blockchain platforms are, and attract really good talent to the blockchain with, you know, potentially, you know, grants, monetary investments, you know, just marketing opportunities, you know, whatever it is, that's what we need to do, because we can't just rely on, oh, Steem's better for these reasons. We need to go out and make sure people know that, and, you know, make sure they're coming and getting the opportunities they need to build on Steem.
Thank you, Matt. I'm Aggroed. I'm a top witness. I helped create this Discord channel. I helped found the Minnow Support Project, msp-waves, Steem Monsters. I'll be working with Matt again on Steem Engine to help get tokens out to everybody, and spending a ton of time on working on the Steem Alliance. I'm personally planning on submitting a proposal to that, but also feel like I was fairly instrumental in helping to get that to be an actual funded thing that Steemit will put some of that mind stake into. You know, there hasn't been a guarantee, but they've been sharing that their plan is to put millions, and the highest number I've heard anybody say is 10 million Steem. We'll see if that actually materializes, but I think, you know, the dream to me is getting Steemit hasn't really been able to do all that they set out to do, in part because they have a really big scope. And so hopefully having a foundation can allow them to really focus on just their business, which is really steemit.com, and just the blockchain development, and let that be the core of what they do, and maybe take some of the marketing and the business, or like the app recruiting. I think there are ways that we can kind of pull that away from them, and you know, maybe we're hosting the repos, maybe we're facilitating marketing discussions, and maybe, you know, one of the things I'd like to talk about, this is actually going to be my next question, but I like, what I would love to see is something along the lines of it's a nonprofit organization that is there to help the blockchain. So we could do something like use the block trades proposal to go fund whatever this Steem Alliance Foundation turns out to be, whether it's my design or the design I'm working on or any of these other ones. You know, I'd love to see a worker proposal system that helps fund this. So like Matt was saying, you could actually get DAP recruitment and have that be not just like, you know, some of the other worker proposal systems I've seen just haven't been organized enough to make me feel like they really make a substantial impact. But if we could get some kind of organization around it so that there are actually people that we can hold accountable to go reach out and get other apps and attract them here and then fund it with a working group, that to me starts getting into like, how do we build an organization and fund it to go do the things that we're missing, of which we've heard: marketing, cultural changes, involvement of the community, management of public repos. Like, there's a shit ton of things that we have to do that we're not quite up to speed as an entire blockchain doing, that, you know, a foundation that's funded might actually have a shot at. So when I'm not doing Steem Monster stuff and when I'm not negotiating with Steemit because of, you know, there's a lot of angry witnesses and I was asked or put to task to help negotiate some things, I ultimately think that the goal and dream here can be, let's get a community foundation to support that. So that's why I've been spending my time there, because I actually think that's one of the most promising things that we have to change the culture, change the process, and get us out of this rut. So Block Trades is like another big witness. He's a major stakeholder and has a blockchain development company. Over the last 6 months, he's put out a couple of these proposals to go. He was actually one of the guys that said, hey, let's go do this RocksDB thing. We think it could save some money. So that was one of the proposals that he wrote. And most recently it was a worker proposal system. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think that that's something that's going to help this ecosystem? Do you think it's just going to drain the reward pool even further? Like, should it be inflationary? Should it not? Or honestly, should it just not exist at all? So those are some of the thoughts that I would ask you to consider. And let's go down the list. Frederica, do you think that I guess in brief, the question is, do you think that the Steem ecosystem would benefit by having a worker proposal system? And would you put any restrictions on how it works to be successful?
All right. So I think, well, there's a lot of things to potentially cover within that question. I think the first thing is I wouldn't add extra inflation to what we already have. I believe that Steem already have a negative reputation from the inflation. So if one of the next big news stories out of our bubble is that we're adding more inflation, I think that would turn out quite negatively. So first thing first, I think it would have to come from the inflation that already exists, whether that be partly from witness rewards or from author rewards and creation rewards. I think right now a lot of stakeholders are already using this inflation to pay for development through upvoting and curating documented posts about what work has been done. So I think some of these people would perhaps stop voting on that and instead use a worker proposal system. So I'm not sure it would change all that much, except for allowing an on-chain community-driven structure, which certainly could work out. So I think to make that happen, the most important thing is that there's a process where the community can report challenges, frustrations, suggestions, whether it is each user individually or it is community groups, can really, this goes back to what we were talking about with Elizabeth, how to ensure that you use the community to give bottom-up feedback about what's important, which could then feed into the worker proposal system, where anyone who claims to be fit to address the problem in one way or another, it doesn't necessarily have to be creating everything, but at the very least contribute to it, can apply for that. I think it's something that we ought to try out, simply because we are already doing it in a very unstructured, somewhat random way, where you need to post things and all that. I think it should be something that comes out of the Steam Alliance work that could complement it very well, where the community gets to fund or decide on what do we want to actually create.
Ella Farms, what do you think? Or should we be doing a worker proposal system if it, especially with one of the main ways that people have talked about funding this is by reducing overall author rewards, and you're representing a curation group. Does that immediately become like a no-go for you, or how could you see both of these things working in tandem?
Well, I read a little bit about the block trades worker proposal, and I personally love the idea of a worker proposal system. When we first, and I don't want to talk too much about the idea of the Steem Alliance, because as of now, it's kind of to the people to decide what it is. But I think that there was this goal in mind from everyone. Ned brought that forward, and the idea was to open it up to the community. So to me, a worker proposal fits right in. Individuals can come forward with their idea to get funding. That's sort of the premise in my mind, how it would work. As far as where that funding comes from, I don't have a huge opinion on that because maybe I don't fully understand it, and I am willing to admit my ignorance there. I don't know that more inflation is a good thing. I know that's been mentioned quite a few times. Removing from some author rewards, I don't have an issue with if it's done correctly and gone to the right places. Many people have talked about witness rewards being used for this. Pulling resources is always good. I think it's about how it's done, if it's done in a fair way. I think that the reward system on Steam is a little bit skewed. It does not promote consumer content consumption. It does not promote development. It's very hard to get funding for anything that you're doing other than making a post, like a lot of people mentioned here. So I'm not, I don't have a huge opinion either way because I don't feel like I'm qualified to have one, if that makes sense. But that's where I am at this point. I'm sort of in a watch and wait and listening to individuals that have more experience than me. But I love the idea of a worker proposal system.
Real Wolf?
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of a worker proposal system on chain. I mean, we could do it in a different way where we could utilize the multisig, where we could utilize an multisig account, which is then being utilized by, for example, witnesses who are then deciding on bounties and when the money should be given away. However, I think that having a direct tool and a separate pool of Steem being generated specifically only for those rewards is very important. And I'm against creating new inflation, but rather taking some of those rewards currently being divided to the curators and authors towards development on the blockchain. And I would even say that we should have done this maybe at least 1 year ago. Because in my opinion, inflation is also a tool which should be used to improve the technology or the ecosystem of Steem. And a proposal system would be very, very valuable for that.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes into what I said before about how we kind of dig out of the hole that we're in, is we need to attract new people, especially, developers and dApps to the platform. So this is a worker proposal system is a great way to say, hey, if you have something cool that you want to contribute to the Steem platform, here's how you can go get some funding for that. And I like the idea that it's up to the Steem community to vote on what we want to fund or what we don't. We could vote to not fund anything if we want. So that kind of openness and is great. And it's like little things, I run Steem meetups in Philly. So, if people want to run a meetup, they can go and make that a worker proposal and say, hey, I need a couple $100 to run a meetup and get food for people and sign up new accounts and whatever they want to do. And if the community likes that, they can vote it and they can get that funds. And it can be also used for bigger projects like, the actual development work. So, I think it's a great thing to have. From the other blockchains I've seen that have implemented it, it seems to work really well. So I don't really see how we would lose too much from having it, again, because if the community decides that they don't want to be spending this extra Steem, they can vote to not spend it.
I'll go on record as saying I'm super in favor of this thing. I think the ability for the community to decide, look, here is money, we don't have to do it, but if we need to do marketing or do app development, or if there are projects, or if there are community pieces, I think every single piece of this is especially with some stake weighted voting to make sure people aren't squandering this shit. I think it would be amazing and would be very helpful. Let's go to a sensitive and sort of difficult topic, and I know I only have about 19 minutes, so we'll see if this is the last one or not. But when we're talking about the power down with Elizabeth is saying, hey, look, I need to be able to go to the board, and the board needs to see a reason why we should do this. And right now, there's not a big enough reason to stop this power down. What, if anything, do you think that witnesses in this community should do? What do you think the consequences of the power down being ongoing are, and how do we apply enough pressure to Steemit to get them to stop the action that basically every single member in this community has voiced some concern over? What's that look like? And we don't have to get, this one's kind of a sensitive topic, so I'm not necessarily going to force everybody to do this, but if you guys want to chime in, what do you see? What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure. Just looking at what has been said over the past few days, I'm not sure there's a lot of quote-unquote pressure that can be applied that would achieve anything. I think the best thing witnesses and community members can do is to act in the most productive way possible with the Steem Alliance to demonstrate that we are absolutely willing to take on some of the responsibilities and tasks that the community has been asking desperately for a long time, and that we truly see that we can work together to increase the value of the token. Because from this vantage point of Steemit Inc., I mean, it must hurt a lot to have been holding all of these coins while the Steem price was at $6, $7, $8, and then suddenly want to power it all down and consider dumping it at these market conditions. So I think the best way is just to have a very collaborative attitude, and to make it so that whatever threat or perception of one that may have existed is replaced with a sense that we really can work together to make these tokens more valuable, and that having transparency where the community sees where these funds are is a vital component of it.
I would also say that, or personally, I don't think that pressure is the right move. Because in my opinion, pressure will only create more threat and fear into Steemit Inc. And I don't think that they're doing it to harm the ecosystem, but simply to protect their stake. And I know it's not a good move for transparency, but I don't think we should focus too much on it. I personally think we should focus on Steem Alliance and making sure that we do our best to provide value, and especially especially hearing it from Ellie, how motivated she is, and that she really wants to bring change to Steem, and of course to Steemit Inc. That's for me personally enough for now. And yeah.
I want to just be super clear because I know I brought it up a couple times now. I know that's clear that I've been bringing it up. For me personally, I never ever felt that it was about the stake. I think that any stakeholder here can do whatever they want with their stake. I don't think it's mine. I have no interest in forking someone out. I have no interest in forking out a stake because I think that's the end of this place. So for me, it's not telling them what they should do with it. For me, it's here we are building a foundation. And I say this as someone who is working pretty hard to help build this foundation. And I see the community coming together behind it. And I see finally people working together, as many have mentioned here. And there's this big elephant in the room where we're trusting this entity and we're working very hard to make this happen and everybody's coming together. And are they leaving? You know, what are they doing? Are they going to put it in accounts where they can now control the platform? These are all valid fears, in my opinion. And with no communication coming out of it, that makes things difficult. It makes it very hard to fully support a foundation when we can't really even trust the individuals putting it on. It makes it difficult. It's really hard to start a relationship, we'll say, on the wrong foot. I think the whole way that the thing happened was wrong. I think we all can admit to that. We have we cannot pressure them. We cannot threaten them with anything. There's absolutely nothing that witnesses can do, in my opinion, to make them stop, if I'm honest. But as a community, we can come together and say, these are the reasons why we feel that this is hurting the community. These are the reasons why we feel this is not helping us to the next step and to really reach our full potential. That's our right. And so me, as a community member, I'm not here as a witness to tell Steemit Inc. they need to do this or I'm going to fork them out. I'm here as a community asking them to please meet us halfway so that we can do what we need to do to make Steem seen by the world and make it reach its full potential. And that's sort of where I am on this. And I'm trying to make that as clear as possible in a respectful way.
Matt, it looked like you had wanted to chime in.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was waiting for you to message me while reading the chat. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at it as I've looked at it this way for a long time, even before all these events. Is just like, you know, Steemit Inc. You know, is they're going to do what they want to do, and all that we can do is, you know, we can try to push them to make things better, and then we can go on and do everything that we can on with or without them. So I kind of feel the same about the power down. You know, they do lots of things that don't make any sense to me. This is one of them, but I accept the fact that I can't really control that. So I'm going to keep going on trying to make Steem better regardless of what they're doing. And, you know, if they come to me and ask my opinion, I'm happy to give it, which they have been recently, and that's a first. So that's a great step in the right direction. I mean, overall, I just don't. I don't honestly know like what is going on there, because I mean, a lot of the things they do, like the power down, they just don't make any sense to me. I mean, I don't see a real credible threat to their stake right now. I mean, maybe they're just like, hey, we don't want to wait until there might be a credible threat and we're just going to get it all out of here. But like, if I'm the board, which is probably mostly controlled by Ned, so if I'm Ned, you know, the value of Steemit Inc. is really almost all just in their Steem that they hold in their stake. So if I were them, I would be doing everything to increase the value of that stake, and them powering down, and the message that sends to everyone in the crypto world doesn't seem to go with increasing the value of that stake. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, you know, if they ask for my opinion, I'm happy to give it, but otherwise they're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm not going to let it, you know, bother me too much.
Yeah, this one has certainly been a hot topic issue, and it pushes some buttons on a lot of different sides. You know, I think to me, what I've been hoping to see, and what I pushed for, was let's get some kind of let's get community involvement in the ability to change how this platform works and basically pick up all the slack that Steemit has. We're going to take a central role in developing everything on the chain, and they haven't really done that. So, but I think the creation of the foundation and funding that foundation, I think, will go a very long way to making up for ways that the community hasn't been able to get involved, and maybe through like repo ownership actually be able to get some more progress on condenser, and a place that we sort of as a group decide as the new home for how we're going to manage the repo, and how we're going to manage whatever pull requests come through, and what the ultimate shape condenser should take as a default setting. So what, the things, I don't think it's gone perfectly, right? But a lot of the pieces that the witnesses have been asking for seem to be getting addressed. The biggest one that's not is the power down. So you see, we wanted a difference in terms of fiscal management, and I feel like actually Elizabeth and the direction that they're taking is good for that. There's going to be revenue. They're cutting costs. Like that discussion is healthy to me. Some combination of me and the witnesses and community requests that I've been hearing are we want an open development process, and I've heard a lot of positive things about that, and trying to change the culture at Steemit to shift back to condensers, stop sunsetting it, and start prioritizing it. I've heard one of the concerns is transparency, and Elizabeth has been open to trying to get transparency reports out. And actually that is the power down itself, is a power down with transparency as bad as just the power down? Like if some of what they can do is make money using the market, that's a possibility. Maybe that can help them have more of a business than just selling Steem. So I think if it's combined with transparency efforts, it's possible that the power down isn't the end of the world. Although I do also think that there's a pretty vocal community of people that just want to fork off of this chain because of how inept they perceive Steemit to have been over the past couple of years. And Steemit moving Steem into exchanges is directly opposed to their ability to sort of see how some changes are going, see how things are moving, and determine if that still is the best option that they could take. So I think in some ways it's actually exacerbating the complaints that the most vocal of the dissenters, of the witnesses and the stakeholders have. And it's simultaneously they're doing some things that are helping to improve relations while also doing things to worsen them, which is, to me, part of why there's so many people pissed off at this company. So I don't know. I guess some of this to me comes down to will and effort. And if we as a community need them to stop, then we should be organizing massive protests around this. And if the community as a group is satisfied enough that transparency along with a power down, or transparency and business changes, or the various routes that they're going, to me, I can sort of go either way, because my dream here is that this chain doesn't split, that the people stay here that have been here, and we all help communally grow this. And if the stakeholders are content, then I want to keep my focus on something like the Steem Alliance, which is positive, rather than the Power Down, which is negative. So, you know, I'm sort of looking to the community to let me know to what degree is this a blow your top kind of issue or a ho hum kind of issue. Where does it fall for them? And then I want to act accordingly. All right, so we have about 5 minutes left of the show, and then it's just gonna automatically cut us off and move on to the next one. So what you guys can get a closing statement. I'm not giving a topic, just what do you want to close on? What do you want us to think about? What's important? What do you want the audience to leave thinking? And let's go do this in reverse order. So Matt, why don't you go first?
Hey, sorry, can you skip me and come back to me?
Yeah.
I was planning on being last. You messed me up here.
See, this is why I did it, making sure. All right, come on. We'll go with Wolf next. Wolf, what? Give us some closing. All right, fine. We'll do it in the normal order. Frederica, go ahead.
All right. So what I would like people to leave with is just to think, in a half a year from now, people will be able to ask, well, where were you when people were looking at having a Steem Alliance and letting the community decide the direction? So it's a pretty pivotal moment about, do we choose to bring all of our best together and see what we can build irrespective of negatives that might be going around, especially in a bear market? And just make sure that you have a productive approach in all the conversations that are taking place in so many corners, because no matter what, this is an opportunity for everyone, no matter if you're a big stakeholder or a small stakeholder, to show some real and clear proof that you care about where we're going. And for anyone looking to have a good position in this blockchain, I think that's the most valuable thing they can do.
Rock on. LL Farms. Apparently closing statements are a challenge for this group. Go for it, LL Farms.
Well, when you get lost in Discord, you get lost. Closing statements. I think there's some really big steps happening. I think this alliance is a really great thing. I think it could be huge for this platform, but I think we as a community need to step up and say what we want. I think that Steemit is a very important part of this ecosystem, but they are a part of it, and we are another big part of it. So I agree with what's been said here. If this is something that we're not okay with, we need to be saying it in a respectful way. It doesn't mean we're telling them what to do. It means we're asking them and telling them our opinion on what this means for us as a community. I think people should get involved. I think we have some great projects happening, and I'm very optimistic currently. So that's sort of where I am.
Wolf?
Yeah, I will try to keep this short. I believe we should focus on productivity and making sure we are not too blind to what's happening. I mean, not blind at all, but of course being optimistic, while at the same time being a bit skeptic about the future, because we don't want to go in there without any worries. However, what's happening right now is very good, in my opinion, especially with the Steem Alliance and the new project from Agrod, the Stars Align. And I personally believe that we have now the ability to bring together one of the biggest crypto communities. And I don't know, everything feels very, very, very new and very strong. And yeah, I'm very excited, and yeah.
We're about to close. Matt, we're going to run over, and it's going to be on the recording. For right this second, I'm going to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking part in this discussion. Making Stuff is going to be up next. There's a election tomorrow, so that's check out the Steem Alliance posts about that, because that's going to help with the whole Steem Alliance and proposal thing. So make sure that you're around 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow if you'd like to see that happen. I guess Matt's saying let's go kick some ass. We got some projects to go work on. Thank you all And you've been riding the waves. This is msp-waves radio. I'm your host, Agrode, currently Witness 1 on the Steem blockchain, and very much looking forward to seeing where these things head. Thanks so much, guys.